development director, and so he will make sure you have a chance to speak if you wish to. And Mike also is one of the people responsible for the event, including some of those homemade cookies back there. So while in typical Greenway fashion and Bill Chapman fashion, I encourage you, as we're talking here, just go back and get food and drink. This should not feel so formal that you can't do that. I want to speak on behalf of someone who can't be here tonight, who's Kurt Fraze, who's in Europe. Kurt Fraze is the incoming board president of the Mountains to Sound Greenway, and he sends these words about Bill. Great leadership moves people to action. It inspires and encourages people to tap an even greater potential and to a stretch for attaining a greater good. It provides a vision of that good. Bill Chapman has provided this and so much more in his leadership of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust. Bill, we honor and the intelligence, effort, and grace that you have shared with us. The Greenway is an even more remarkable place today because of your service. I look forward to the next chapters of our journey as we climb even higher together. A couple of you asked about Frankie Chapman. She's also not here tonight. She's called out of town for a family matter. It has been my great honor and joy, it is my great honor and joy to work with Bill Chapman. It's my honor because of the way that Bill works. As you may know, in the method of Jim Ellis, when you see where you're going and you stay on that path and you do it in the highest class way possible to get there. It's my joy because Bill does that with his inimitable humor and just keeping the fun in it as you're going. We have several people who want to share their feelings about Bill Chapman, and I next turn to Eric Lashman.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's a pleasure to be back here at K&L Gates. And my remarks for this evening are entitled, Bill Chapman, a love story. And given the occasion and Bill's commitment to the Greenway, the title probably does not surprise, but this is actually about a different love. And Frankie's not here, but you should all be apprised that Frankie knows about this other love. In fact, Frankie was there at the beginning. The scene is the Bell Harbor Convention Center at the Greenway Trust annual dinner. Bill and Sally Jewell share the MC honors. As usual, Bill is at high energy, and you've all seen Bill at high energy. He's at the podium and on his feet for virtually the entire evening. If this were a sporting event, we would say of Bill, he left it all on the floor. After we sing God Bless America, and while the crowd is thinning out, I approach Frankie. Moved by the evening, I confide, I really love your husband. Nonplussed, Frankie responds, well, you should tell him, here he comes. She may have even said something helpful, such as, hey, Bill, Eric has something to tell you. So with little choice, at that point, I tell Bill I love him. I don't recall his response at the time. However, over the years, he occasionally mentions it to mutual friends, and so I assume he values my sentiment and maybe even seconds the emotion. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, we're at another Greenway dinner, this time at the convention center over Freeway Park, another Ellis monument. And again, Bill is high energy, this time without Sally, virtually carrying the evening alone. And it's as if by his sheer will and power, he is trying to exhort the crowd to fill in the Greenway map before we collect our coats and leave for the evening. I didn't get a chance to talk to Bill at the end of that evening, but I did walk into his office the next day here at the firm and to debrief about the event. And after some, pleasantries, he says, "Do you remember when you told me you loved me?" What were you thinking? No. It was really more, what prompted you to say that? Because it's a little unusual. And over the years, I'd actually asked myself that same question, like, where did that come from? And so I had an answer, and I respond to Bill. I've always admired you as a father, as a great husband, and the way you've wedded your practice of the law to civic commitment. However, the emotion really came from watching you at the Greenway dinner, because it just struck me how you were not holding any of yourself back. How you were putting yourself out there with total disregard for how people might take it. And Bill, when he is doing that, is a large presence. And it just struck me, here is somebody who is just in the moment and giving everything that he possibly can. And so I told him that it made me recall the line from Theodore Roosevelt, the man in the arena. Now, the K&L Gates crowd is very well read, so I know I'm not alone in knowing what Teddy Roosevelt said. But it goes something like this, and I quote, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred," and I'm going to choke up here, so I'll just get it over with. "Whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause." Roosevelt captures the essence of Bill's labor of love for the Greenway. There is love, and there's also a tremendous amount of labor. This time I remember Bill's response. He thanks me and tells me that he could think of nothing more that he would want as his epitaph. Well, Bill, you don't need to wait that long for me to share this sentiment with a crowd. Of course, I tell this story to celebrate, in Roosevelt's words, Bill's enthusiasm, great devotion, and the energy he has spent in a most worthy cause. My story, however, makes a larger point. Relationships such as Bill's to the Greenway are symbiotic. While Bill's efforts on behalf of the Greenway undoubtedly have made it a better, more treasured place, the Greenway, and importantly, Bill's efforts on its behalf, have made Bill a better, and I dare say, a more treasured Bill. In short, Bill, by your efforts on its behalf, the Greenway has filled you with its magnificent grandeur. As Bill passes the baton to Kurt Fraze, as it was passed on to Bill from Jim Ellis and Sally Jewell, I say to Kurt, across the ocean, and indeed to all who invest themselves in the Greenway, as you enter the arena, know that you will rise to meet the trail ahead and become your best selves through your efforts.
You should reassure people they don't have to do it.
I know, that's right. Is our next speaker ready? Yes? Jim Ellis would like to say a few words.
And in this case, the Greenway itself is going back quite a long distance. I remind those of you who are less encumbered with long memories that everything we talk about today is just the same kind of stuff that we talked about when the Greenway was first started. People carried away with love of the country, in which they found themselves, in which they have donated a lot of time and effort, but more importantly, which has had a reciprocal arrangement of love, in which people love the countryside, and it in turn loves them. The winters that I used to spend in Los Angeles, California, just south of here, were always free to get out of the rain. But when I got back, I always had a feeling like I'm back in God's country. And that is the feeling I believe that Bill has had from the outset. We're lucky to have been born and raised in this place, or even to have spent a few years here. And I think, in turn, we're very fortunate that that affection is shared by people willing to pour it on. And Bill is one of those guys. He really has poured it on throughout his association with me. I'm grateful for the fact that he undertook the task, and I think Sally would join me in saying it's a hell of a place to work, and it's a mighty fine thing to look at in retrospect. I don't know if many of you could have been present, or some certainly were, when we had our party up at the North Bend, and right in the shadow of Mount South. And it was a lovely day, and a lot of fine people were there. But the thing that was impressive to me was almost everyone there loved the whole thing. That if they loved the place, they loved the event, and they loved all the people who had worked on it. And that is the same way that I think Bill probably feels today. And it has been for him a place in which he could share his love of this incredible and unique environment with a lot of other people who in turn are themselves inspirations. And it's wonderful, Bill, to see you retiring in full glory. And I hope that when you come back again, you will bring with you your grandchildren and great-grandchildren to show them what we have here. Good work. Thank you.
That party Jim was referring to, if you weren't there, was 8 years ago when Jim turned 85. So speaking of longevity, I'm going to just take a little poll here of how long we've known Bill. So how many people in the room have known Bill Chapman, had a chance to work with him over 5 years? Oh, lots of us. Okay, let me see, how about over 10 years? Still a lot of you. Do we have people over 20 years? Yes? Over 30? Over 30 years! Oh my goodness! Over 40? We have somebody in the room who has known Bill Chapman for over 40 years. Pro Board Store, would you come tell us about this?
My name's Carl. I took this picture right here, but my slideshows tend to run long, so in the interest of time, I'm going to limit my remarks to the 1970s. I thought you might be interested in what Bill Chapman was like as a teenager and early 20-something. this, at the time, and for several decades, set the record as the largest audience for a music festival in the world, in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And I've actually known many of you for a long time, and I don't know the answer to this. Was anybody besides me and Bill at this festival? I actually did not bring a camera to Watkins Glen, but watch the movie and get a pretty good idea of the Woodstock movie. But first and foremost, Bill was a music lover. 2 months later, we started rowing 5 days a week on the Charles River until the following May. And of course, this is not what Bill looked like after Watkins Glen. These pictures in the freshman Facebook were mostly or all taken from high school senior portraits, so I'm guessing this was when Bill was 17, late 72, early 73. By the time we met and started rowing, we were 18. You can see Bill's from Chittenango. That's an hour and a half north of Binghamton. He was going to major in government. As you'll see, he ended up not majoring in government, but we know he had aspirations to government. We were rowing at this place. This is the River House section of the Harvard campus in the summer when it's nice out. And you can see Claverley Hall actually peeking out where Andy Salter and Bill and I each lived, right there to the right of the indoor athletic building with the white roof there. This looks a little too idyllic. This is what it was like for much of the year. There's the Harvard Yard there in the foreground, and Harvard Square in the upper corner of it, and the river houses, and business schools on the upper left on the Boston side, as is Harvard Stadium there near the center. And our boathouse is right there next to the stadium, and we would row upstream for practices a lot of the time, but mostly downstream towards Boston to the left. And you'll notice that the river is black. That's not just because of the toxic chemicals in it. The Standell song, I love that dirty water, it's about that river that we would row on and splash each other with, but it's also black because it's not frozen yet. And so when the temperatures would get very cold in the winter, much colder than they get here, it would take a while for the river to freeze solid. And during that time, we had to keep going on and rowing on it. And so I want to say Bill was tough because we would, get we'd be warm with our, exertion. Our skin would be warm, but then a centimeter from your skin, things would be freezing, and so you get this potentially a helmet of ice on your head from the water that's being splashed onto it. The left-hand side of the river there is the start of what's called the Powerhouse Stretch. And here you see that down at the bottom, and it winds its way down to Boston. Over here on the right is I-90, way east of Ellensburg. The upper left, you see downtown Boston, Beacon Hill, USS Constitution's on the left margin. Harvard is down in the lower left corner. And the Charles River Basin, this is when it's frozen. We're not rowing on it. We're rowing in indoor tanks, but when it melts out, we'll be back on the water. And our race course is in that big basin there. MIT is on the lower side, and Boston's on the upper side. That black monolith right there by the Mass Ave Bridge is the Hancock building, and right next to it is the Prudential Tower. And you see the Hancock building on the left, the Prudential Tower there. That's Bill in the middle with that white headband he's been wearing ever since Watkins Glen. He was in good shape. He was physically strong. You say that for sure. And at the end of the freshman year, we've been doing this 5 days a week, 6 days a week by the spring. And after all that working out, we spent a lot of time together. Bill was friendly, he was likable. and even charming. He was witty, he had a good sense of humor, which was very important if you're going to be out there rowing in freezing temperatures and doing all the other workouts we did. So, among the other things we did to work out, our boathouse there in the lower left was on Starl Drive on the Charles River, and that's Harvard Stadium right there. And we would run up and down the sections of the stadium to get our legs in shape. And I don't remember ever walking over to that overpass to get there. We would always run across Starwood Drive, and that's a freeway. This is like the Bellevue baseball team, Bellevue high school baseball team running across 405 in downtown Bellevue in the middle of the day, every day. And nobody ever calling the cops or anything. So Bill was adventurous and daring, I would say. And this stadium is the oldest concrete stadium in the country. It's so old, Bob Marley played there. And we used to, for a normal workout, we'd run up 10 sections, up and down, without stopping. And when we did all 37 sections, we called that a tour de stade. And that was like about 1,600 feet of elevation gain, which was like going from the High Point exit on the cable line trail from High Point up to the West Tiger Railroad without stopping. And Bill once did 101 sections, which is like going up Mailbox Peak and beyond, from bottom to top without stopping. Of course, he wasn't carrying a pack, but wasn't stopping either. Again, he had stamina. And through all that, he was cheerful and enthusiastic, which is, again, important to be able to keep doing this as a team. I don't remember him standing on chairs, but he did stuff like that. And here you see it at the freshman championship with our coach, Dick Cranky, in the middle. The tradition is to throw the coxswain into the water after you win, and then everybody else ends up in the water. And here's Bill soaking wet, giving a bear hug to Dick's wife, Susan, who was, I think, totally dry up until that moment. But that's Bill's personality coming through. Bill was also passionate about exploring the nation's scenic byways. And we ended up as fifth-year seniors because we each took time off during our time at Harvard to explore the West. I went out the summer after freshman year up and down the Rockies and up and down the Sierra, and I actually don't have any pictures of Bill out in the woods. I never saw him in the woods in the 70s, but I know he was out there because we told each other about what we were doing. And then Bill took sophomore year off, and then I took junior year off to live in the West and explore. And Bill was working to engage youth in the outdoors. Here you see that when he was back at school and I was in San Francisco, he was lining up a summer job to work for the YMCA and take youth out on hikes in the Berkshires and the White Mountains and the Adirondacks.
Carl, was that a postcard or a letter that I wrote?
That was a letter. Yeah.
Back in the days when letters were written.
How are we doing with time, Carl?
So fast forward to our fifth year. This is the river frozen over and our boathouse on the Charles. I took this picture from the Lars Anderson Bridge. The boathouse has tanks in that squarish rectangular building on the right where we would row every day when the river was frozen. And then when it melted out, we could get back on the water. Here's Bill on the dock with some sideburns on there, and getting ready to go out This is practicing on the Charles River Basin. That's me on the left and Bill on the right, getting ready for the racing season. This is during the racing season. That's me, the sunglasses, and Bill up at the top, right after we had beaten the U.S. Naval Academy on the Charles River. And this is right before the Eastern Championships in Worcester, not just the Ivy League, but MIT, Georgetown, BU, Northeastern, Navy, a bunch of schools in the East that rode. And Bill was dependable. I was very much depending on him to pull as hard as I was pulling. It wasn't going to work for me if he didn't. So he did that, and I'm glad he did. We won that championship. So Bill is a champion. Here we are about to throw our coxswain in the water. It's me again with the sunglasses and Bill right there in the foreground. I was actually on crutches when I took this picture because we had a celebration at Coach Higginson's house and I injured my foot in a soccer game. But we continued to practice because this was like 1 or 2 years before the NCAA started to have a national championship in lightweight varsity crew. They had been doing it with heavyweights at the IRAs, but not with lights. So we had actually reached out to the winners of the Western Springs that year, and they were willing to do a post-season dual race for a unified championship, and that was the University of Washington in Seattle. So we were planning to make our first visit to Seattle as part of that. But after we practiced a little while, UW, their plans, went different directions. So they were no longer around to meet up with us. So we graduated, and here you see that I think they got the birth date wrong. But instead of government, Bill had majored in engineering and applied physics, and he's been building airplanes for Boeing ever since. You see the environmental interest there, the ecology action, and Harvard Environmental Law Review, and student government as well.
Is that his Facebook page?
This is our senior yearbook. And then after college, Bill was a teacher. He went to Hawaii and taught there, and still enjoying nature and the outdoors. You see here. And that gets us to the end of the 70s, so I'm going to pass the mic around, and anybody who wants to talk, move on.
Carl, thank you. I want to remind you, this is a time, please go get food and drink while we're talking, because it is indeed time for people to share their stories. And Mike's going to make sure people who want to speak get a chance to.
Yes.
Anyone want to come up and take a shot right now? If not, I could tell some interesting Bill Chapman stories. I do just quickly want to say, Bill, while I have the microphone in my hand, and this is tough because tonight when you came in, you saw me and the lovely Margaret Ullman Hess and said, "Oh, it's our hostesses for the evening." So it's a little tough for me to say something nice, but I do just quickly want to say that you have made me a better advocate for the Greenway. It is really sort of the holy grail in what I do, to be able to move people in the moments and inspire people with your words and your conviction, and that is what I aspire to, and it's what you do. I've seen you do it. I've seen it on people's faces when you speak about the Greenway, the ability to connect from inside you and your love for this place and give that to other people. It's an amazing and powerful thing. So thank you for helping me along that path. Anyone else have anything they would like? Karen? Oh.
I've had the pleasure of working with Bill. We carpool back and forth to Olympia when we both served on the Recreation and Conservation Funding Board, and for 8 years. So that's a lot of time in a car. And that's a lot of time overhearing conversations, watching Bill multitask. really seeing from a different perspective his absolute passion for the outdoors, but also overhearing conversations. I mean, it's not like you're eavesdropping, you're right there in the car, right? But as he talked to his kids, how's it going? How are you doing? How is your day-to-day? What's going on? Boy, that just sounds great. And the motivation that I felt working with Bill, I saw him play with his children, and I just think that is an amazing and really true gift, and a very, very special part of Bill. I also watched him in action, and I heard just the last time we were together talking about going back to Washington, D.C., meeting with John Jarvis about the heritage designation, and how he got up at 5 in the morning, and he didn't know how it was going to go. So he did what any good lawyer does, and that he sits and he practices and walks through. What if he says this? What if he says this? What if he goes there? And was so prepared, so confident, and I thought, boy, I have a lot to learn. It's been just a real pleasure. I consider Bill a friend, a great climbing buddy, hiking buddy. I love getting out anywhere but the Greenway. Such a special place. He walks his talk, and I wish him only the best.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else from the crowd have anything to say? Joanna?
Thank you. I just want to take you 10 years forward from where Carl left us in '79 to 1989, when Bill was a founding member of the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Coalition. And not to steal from the Greenway's thunder here, but Bill has been representing the Greenway on our board for the last decade. And no, actually much longer than that. And but anyway, that in '89 he helped form the Wildlife and Recreation Coalition and has left an incredible legacy. He helped draft the statute for the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program, a state grant program that has yielded $1.2 billion for over 1,200 projects across the state, including many in the Greenway. Yes.
Here, here.
So it's an incredible legacy that Bill has left, and it's been an honor to work with him for the 15 years that I've been director of the Wildlife and Recreation Coalition. And thank you, Bill, for your leadership on the coalition board and for that vision back 25 years ago.
Sue McLean.
I just have to add my 2 cents worth in terms of being on the Greenway board and working with Bill over 15 plus years. Absolutely a joy to work with, to watch him lead. His inspiration is infectious for all of us, and I so enjoy hearing him laugh. It is simply delightful for all of us, and I know that each of us here have been touched by your life in the way that which you've given to each of us. So thank you so much.
Anyone else? I think actually one more friend of yours, Bill, wanted to be here tonight, but there was some hang-up, couldn't get time off from her boss or something like that. So we actually have a message that we wanted to play from that person.
Hello, Bill Chapman. Can't be with you in person, but I'm here right on Mercer Island, just a few miles away from the wonderful Chapman residence, to celebrate you. 10 years as leader of the Mountains to Sound Greenway, and what a great job you've done. I'm here in Aubrey Davis Park, another wonderful tribute to a Greenway board member, and a great step in this wonderful Greenway that we've been working on together for so many years. I have to say that from our hike up Mount Daniel to many other hikes in the Greenway, to the work we've done together in Preston, and to the much work that's going to be done going forward as we work on national recognition for this wonderful place, can't think of a better leader to stand in the footsteps of Jim Ellis So happy you're staying on the board. And most importantly, you have recruited a fantastic group of new board members that are going to be as committed as you to taking the Greenway forward. So I hope everybody raises a glass to you, to your work for the Greenway, and to everything you're going to do in the future. Here's to you. Cheers.
Sally, I'm turning this back over to Cynthia Welty. We have a couple of quick things for you, Bill.
We do. So, Bill, if you can come forward. We have something for you to hang on your walls wherever you may be so that you can tell them about the Greenway. And this says, to our friend Bill Chapman, in appreciation of 10 years as president of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust, we thank Bill for his unflagging leadership and determination, for his steadiness and humor under pressure, and for his inexhaustible passion and spirit. Bill's commitment to the Greenway vision, his immense dedication to this place, and his ability to inspire others has lifted the organization to new heights and firmly established the Greenway Trust as the leader in conserving the landscape as an essential part of the quality of life in this region. Bill's leadership has made a positive impact that will echo across the Greenway for generations and will continue to guide our work for years to come. As proclaimed this day, June 26, 2014.
This is a postcard photo?
Yes.
You know where this came, what part of the archives this came from? Ingalls?
Yes, it's a Carl Scar photo. I always ask Amy.
North Ingalls. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
In Bill Chapman fashion, we also passed a hat ahead of time for people to make a donation in your honor. And we want to thank the many people who have raised over $17,000 and counting for this event that goes to the Mountains of Sound. So another round of applause and thank you.
I'm a little choked up. More than a little choked up. Eric's comments, Carl's rendition, Sue's comments, Karen's comments, Joanna, thank you so much for saying something. I'm honored by this cavalcade of Washingtonians here. This is more than I expected, more than I would have hoped for. The current mayor of Mercer Island, the most esteemed former mayor of Mercer Island, my friend Ava Freisinger, who's helped us for 16 years from the city of Issaquah Greenway, Larry Phillips, who's helped us forever on King County Council, Bonnie Bunning, who made DNR work for a decade and more as a partner with the Greenway. I shouldn't have started this because I would have to go through all 70 of you. Mr. McDonald sitting there helping the Director of Transportation find their way to a Mountain to Sound Greenway along I-90. The folks here that have supported us for so long, obviously, and I don't know how many times we've asked you all for money, but I can't believe you did it again. Thank you. Thank you again. 10 years ago, this month, 10 years and 3 weeks ago, Sally sat down and I stood up and tried to let Nancy Keith know I was going to take just 2 minutes at the end of the board meeting because I had something I wanted to say. I was the new president. Nancy was sure I shouldn't, but I insisted. And I held up a pair of size 19 shoes to reflect, of course, the shoes that Sally and I had tried to fill of Jim Ellis. For those on Mercer Island that know that I got them from Blair Rasmussen. It's the only place you can find size 19s. And out of them I pulled a pair of size 14s that were emblematic of Sally's shoes. And out of those, I pulled the 11-year-old soccer player next door. Her shoes were size 7s. And I said, these size 7s are mine. Because these are my shoes, I'm going to need so much more help than Jim and Sally ever needed. And if there's one thing I want to say tonight, it's I can't tell you how much help you gave me, how much help you gave us at the Greenway, what great partners Washington Trails Association and WWRC and Trust for Public Land have been to us for so many years, and the cities we've worked with from Issaquah to Mercer Island to Bellevue. I saw Conrad Lee here earlier. It's just been a remarkable partnership, and the amount of energy you have poured into helping us build a greenway has inspired me. Has inspired me to keep finding more energy to want to do more. The help is so much it makes me grin. It makes me grin, and I was trying to think, in our family we call it the Phineas grin, because our dog has a fine grin when hiking the Greenway. But the picture I would paint for you is a pancake eating grin, or a syrup dripping chin grin, or an ice cream licking grin. And that's the type of grins that we've created in the Greenway, both the people who have worked on it and built it, and the kids, the 40,000 kids that we've taken out to educate in the Greenway. The people that we've taken on hikes, on trails that did not exist in the Greenway. Those kind of grins are infectious indeed, and they do build something that we are trying to pass on. I had a partner, good friend of the partners of mine that are in here, who said to me once, you know, you've got a bit of a deficiency. I'm not sure you got the gene for self-doubt. You might want to try to compensate. Dave Bateman with a little self-knowledge assessment for me. That might have been an overstatement, but it is fair to say that I don't address things out of fear a lot. I've had a good life in that way. Didn't get into my law practice much. The kind of problems people bring us, we can only do better. People wait till it blows up before they bring it to us anyway. And in the mountain climbing that I get to do, if I'm concerned about something, it's that I've brought maybe someone along that I shouldn't have brought along. But certainly when I climb alone, it's not something where I'm confronting fears. There might be a little extra energy here and there, but I did things in the Greenway that made me afraid. And my wife helped me understand that. Frankie, our son had an emergency appendectomy last night. Yesterday at noon, we knew nothing about it. And by 8, he was in the emergency room, and I took Frankie to the airport this morning. She's there now. She would have been here, and I'd be doing better. But where was I? She said to me, so what are you most afraid of? And I was afraid of failure. I was afraid that we would try to build a park, say we were going to build a park for the city of Snoqualmie and not do it. I was afraid we would ask the legislature for money to build a trail, and either we wouldn't get the money, they'd completely ignore us, or we wouldn't build the trail. Well, Mr. Schindler made sure if we got the money, we would build the trail. But we did raise the money from the Gates Foundation, from the legislature, from DNR's capital fund, from a number of different places. We built not only the trail up Rattlesnake Ledge with our friends at WTA, but the 11-mile trail across Rattlesnake Ridge, and a parking lot in case you needed to put your vehicle somewhere before you went up, so you weren't on private property. And then we doubled down and did it with DNR on Little Side, and then we tripled down and did it with DNR on Mailbox. We created trails where there are not been trails. We built bicycle trail segments. We got kids out on them. And the amount of success we've had, to me, it's unimaginable. But I will tell you, I was afraid. I assume that doesn't surprise any of you, but I can't believe what we launched and then what actually came through. And I couldn't be prouder of that. I couldn't be more grateful for that, for the many partners that we've worked with in the cities and the county and DNR and the Forest Service. And each day that I think about what we got done, I get that grin back that I described with the ice cream and the syrup and the pancakes. To give you a sense of where that went for me, and this is where I'll close, I have tried to thank the staff at the Greenway, those 15 people who have dedicated their lives to this. This is all they do, and who actually get these things done, who have produced so much where the rubber meets the road. And I can't ever thank them enough, and some of them I've been trying to thank for 17 or 18 years. You should keep that in mind, because they are, right, I mean, board people, board presidents, they launch crazy ideas, they draft mission statements, they vote, yes, we should do that, and then people figure out how to get it done. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, and then the last thing, when Sally Jewell left REI, her board decided on their own, without anybody asking them, that they should give $50,000 to the Greenway, because that was the right way to honor Sally. And I got to tell you, Sally was involved in about 12 boards in 30 different organizations, and I was very, very honored that they chose the Greenway for that $50,000 donation. In the same way, my daughter has decided, the daughter who didn't always want to hike, those of you who read the article in the newsletter, my daughter, each year on Father's Day, writes me a note and says, look, I will spend a day hiking with you in the Greenway. Where do you want to go? And she identified that the best gift she could give me was time with her in the Greenway, and she couldn't have been more right, more spot on in both respects. And that's where I'll finish. Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, please stay for some more camaraderie.
Cookies, party. Fruit.